Oh God, it's that time of the month again. It's so hard to be a woman. This is the cross we have to bear. This is a portal to our mother energy, our queen energy. All right. So we have gone through week 1, bleed week, week 2, pre-ovulation, ovulation, into week 3, into the luteal phase. And now we are finally capping off, if you will, our menstrual masterclass with week 4. Now, week 4 is the time where there can be, we'll say, the most aggravation for women. So the PMS symptoms are usually at their peak. We can have dysregulations in the amount of progesterone and estrogen relative to each other. And that can drive a lot of the moodiness, maybe the weepiness, the sensitivity, and then just the physical discomfort. And of course, our temperature is also changing here as well. So let's talk about what's going on and what we can be doing from a nutritional perspective, a movement perspective, and emotional and mental well-being perspective as well. So let's talk about nutrition first, because this is always the big one. I think that at this point, lots and lots of substrate has been thrown into the endometrial lining, right? So this is metabolically a very expensive process. And I generally like to bump up total caloric intake, irrespective of the macros, by 10 to 15%. Okay. So I like her to be having more food. Now, we're not talking about like cleaning out the Haagen-Dazs down the street or cleaning out the 7-Eleven or whatever. But we do want to be increasing your calories. So 10 to 15% is not that much. That's like maybe an extra protein bar or, 2. And I like you also, in terms of a macronutrient perspective, to be consuming more protein and more carbohydrates. So more protein is going to be more satiating. It's going to help with those cravings. And then carbohydrates, just because we need them. Okay. I really do want to get away from people being scared of carbohydrates. I think that a lot of people in the keto community, including myself, I've had to learn this out of myself, I'll say, that keto or that carbohydrates somehow are detrimental. And when they're used strategically, like when we use them post-workout, and when we use them, when we have complex carbohydrates and consuming carbohydrates that are from actual food, like actual food sources, not just bags and packaging. I think that it's important for us to be honoring what carbohydrates do for our thyroid. More insulin helps with that conversion of T4 to T3, like carbs are important. Okay. So I want you to have more carbs, more protein. Women typically have an increased appetite, more food, cravings. And this is also due to some of the cyclical changes in serotonin and decreasing amino acid levels in the body. So, and this is again, because a lot of those amino acids are being thrown into that endometrial lining. So, and just in terms of like mechanistic, like why this is happening, the decrease in amino acid in that plasma amino acid level in the luteal phase, is probably associated with progesterone's, like that uptick in progesterone that we have, as well as the protein biosynthesis required for that endometrial thickening, right? To prepare the uterus for pregnancy. So we have naturally a higher expenditure, a metabolic expenditure in this week anyway. And we should be compensating by eating more there. And in my opinion, particularly protein, right? Because we have this protein biosynthesis is endometrial thickening, right? And we want to be supplementing that with protein. You'll also notice, if you're taking blood draws, that lipids will decrease in the luteal phase, suggesting again a higher utilization of fat for either lipid synthesis, steroid synthesis, or just generally an increased fat absorption. So when we think about this in the context of week 4, progesterone has peaked. Progesterone peaks around day 21, 22, let's say, of your cycle. And then after that, there's like a sudden drop, like a couple days, like say day 26, 27, there's like a rapid drop in both progesterone and estrogen. So this time where we see that rapid drop, right? That rapid drop in P and E, that rapid drop in progesterone and estrogen. This is like maybe a clinical glimpse for you, like foreshadowing of what your experience of menopause might be like. So, and the reason why I say that is because there's a sudden drop in your sex hormones. Like all of a sudden they're dropped, right? And if you don't have your ducks in order, the symptoms that you experience in the days before your period likely, not always, but likely amplified through your perimenopausal and menopausal years. However, you are going to follow some of my recommendations and other experts like myself, and we are going to help you circumvent them. So, from a nutritional perspective, I've already said higher protein, higher carbs, more satiating, help to curb cravings. The carbohydrates, especially if you're having like plants and complex carbohydrates, low lectin load, lots of fiber. It's really going to help with some of the slowing down of the bowels that you may notice under progesterone's influence. So the more you need to keep your water and your fiber uptake in to keep those BMs, those bowel movements, regular. And just I need to talk about this because when I tell women I want you to increase your calories, everyone's like, no. And I want you to remember, maybe don't do that. Don't have that response, but your body, when you eat less, your body instinctively prepares for famine. Okay. So your body is like literally like always like scanning, like always like scanning the landscape to see whether or not you're heading into a famine, if it's okay for you to be pregnant, et cetera. When you're not eating, and if you don't increase your calories this week, your basal metabolic rate is going to decline. Exercise becomes more difficult. You expend less exercise energy through exercise. It's like so painful. Like you finally muster up the courage to go and exercise. And then because you're not eating a sufficient amount of calories, you expend less energy when you're exercising. Your digestion's slower. You reduce your spontaneous movement, right? So we want to be thinking about adaptive, like metabolic adaptation. And we want to be thinking about when we are eating sufficient amounts of calories, right, to sustain life and to hopefully grow some beautiful muscle. This is called adaptive thermogenesis, which basically means your body wastes calories as heat. Okay. So when done properly, when you're eating this, an appropriate amount of calories, your BMR rises, your workout capacity increases, your spontaneous activity increases, digestion turns to normal, etc. So this is the week where if I'm going to do a refeed, like higher carbs, higher protein, this is it. You can continue with resistant starches. We were talking about resistant starches and all their benefits in week 3. If you haven't watched week 1, 2, or 3, please do that right now. Fasting is also going to be like, I typically don't like to fast this week. I'm just gonna be straight up with you guys. I hate fasting the week before my period. I almost never do it. Like I probably am a 12-12 this week. So 12 hours of fasting and like 8 or 9 of that is sleeping. And then, 12-hour eating window. Training. So again, the emphasis is heavy, but we are going to really expand the rep range here. So I like to lighten the load. So lighter weights, but they're still heavy. They're heavy for a 15 to 20 rep range. Okay. 4 sets, if you can, of each. 5 if you're feeling like a gangster, but 4 sets, 15 to 20 reps is kind of my general recommendation. And this way we are still working the muscle. It's a lighter load. You're not working to fatigue, but you're generating, or you're like every time that muscle contracts, you're secreting something called a myokine. And a myokine is like one of several hundred cytokines that are produced and released by the skeletal muscle cells in response to muscular contraction. Okay. So we won't get it again, like the immune system can get very, very complicated very quickly, but I will say that receptors for myokines are found on the muscle, liver, adipose tissue, pancreas, bone, heart, brain, like kind of all the places that we care about. And they are, involved in, we'll say, the metabolic changes following training adaptation. If you want to have like a fancy word, we're going to talk about exercise associated metabolic changes, whatever. Basically, they're going to help with the adaptation post workout, they are also going to help in immunomodulation and cell signaling, meaning that they are going to participate in tissue generation and repair. They're going to help with lowering those inflammatory, like that feeling of inflammation that can happen in that fourth week. Cardio here can kind of be whatever you want. I typically do steady state. You can certainly do HIIT here as well. But I find just generally, and this is just me being totally honest with you, I typically just cut up the cardio this week. I just don't have it in me. Like I have it to do my resistance training and that's it. I just break from cardio because just frankly, I don't enjoy cardio as much as I do weights. No scientific reasoning behind that recommendation, other than that's just my personal preference. You do you, boo. So if you like the cardio this week, have at it. Okay. There's no hormonal or physiological indication not to. Now, emotions. This week, we have what is called a negativity bias, meaning people are going to annoy you this week. It could be your husband, your kids, your boss, your mother, your girlfriends, whatever. What I would like to invite you to do is to notice this without judgment, to notice your bias, whether it's to your husband, your kids, your boss, all of them, whatever. Because this is a special time of the month. I want you to honor this negativity bias because it is a time where you are naturally biased to view things in a negative light. And why this is so great. Okay. I'm like, oh, it's so great. We are so negative this week. Why am I saying that? It provides clues to where you might be unsatisfied in your life. So maybe your boss is bothering you because your job is really weighing you down, and you might be able to punch through it in the follicular phase, right? Everything's firing, all cylinders, you can people, but it really weighs you down in these few days before your period. Maybe there's a conversation you need to have with your coworker, maybe with your partner, a child, whatever. I think it's important. This time of negativity is important because there are things that are going to bother you the most. And if you can observe them without judgment or judgment for yourself, then you can say, okay, I need to figure out how to change this for the next cycle of my life. And we've already talked about week 1 being like the problem solving week. This is the week to figure out what the problem is so that next week when you're bleeding, you can figure out what it is that you're going to do about it. Okay. And I want to just highlight this as a positive and start to reframe this because so often we dismiss these symptoms as like dumb. Oh God, it's that time of the month again. It's so hard to be a woman. This is the cross we have to bear. This is a portal to our mother energy, our queen energy. So often, and society promotes this, we want to stay the maiden. We want to stay helpless, forever young, forever naive. This negativity bias is a portal into your queen energy about identifying the problem and how, as a boss ass bitch, are you going to solve it? Because you are a queen and that's what you do. Okay. Okay. I shall step off of my mother and maiden queen energy and like the princess and the queen, because we don't want to be the princess. We want to be the queen. That's what we are. Okay. If you want me to go more, if you want me to do more queen energy and princess energy, mother and maiden energy, let me know. I love that magic. There's some magic in that energy. Like, you know me, I love the science. I've given you lots of science over these past 4 weeks, but I also love the magic as well. So, couple things for you to do. I want you to like and subscribe to this channel, please. And thank you. And I would love to know how this information has helped you. So type in the comments, let me know how these menstrual masterclasses have been useful for you and what you would like me to continue doing in the future. If you enjoyed that conversation and you want to learn more about hormones, check out this video right here.
Oxytocin is the opposite. It's the most alkalinizing hormone. So in fact, you can have a night out eating pretty crappy, but you've been partying with your friends, laughing, had great sex and you wake up and your urine pH is completely alkaline. That's the power of oxytocin.